Okay.
All right, it's about time to start. Uh, Good morning, everyone. Welcome to an online seminar on the Science Competency Framework for Future Generation. Our guest speaker today seminar is Professor Dr Molford. He is an associate professor in science education and research methodologies from University of Victoria, Canada. Uh, Good morning, or should I say good evening, Professor Molford. Okay, my name is Savin Cheongkang. I will be your moderator today. The purpose of today's seminar is to receive comments and suggestions from you, Professor Milford, on the draft of science competency for the upcoming science curriculum in Thailand. Before we begin, I would like to give an introduction about our guest speaker today with some of his information that I found from the Google. So please, Professor Milford, please correct me if my information about you is wrong because I just Google it and found it. Okay. From what I found on Google, Professor Todd Milford is an associate professor in science education and research methodology from University of Victoria, Canada. He is currently doing research in three areas, including science education, classroom management, and teacher education. So he has more than 40 publications and also have many interesting articles and books chapter which are relating to today's seminar topics such as STEM education inside classroom, science teacher preparation in North America context, science education reform in Canada, and multiculturalism in Canada, inquiry-based teaching and learning, and international science achievement from PISA assessment. So I think it is great opportunity to us to have you here with us today. I am confident that your expertise will provide valuable information to us to improve the quality of science education in Thailand. So then I would like to introduce the audience of this seminar for our guest speaker too. All of the audience of this seminar are IPSC science team who are responsible in developing national science curriculum of Thailand. We are all, we also have our project manager, Dr. Puchana Doktan Yong, joining seminar today. On top of that, we also have IPSC executive, the assistant to the president of the IPSC, Dr. Kusalin Musikun, with us today as well. So I would like to invite Dr. Kusalin to offer a warm welcome to our guest speaker, Professor Todd Milford.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Good
Hopefully
evening.
you can hear. Hopefully,
Yeah.
Sorry. That was a nice. Will people introduce themselves on the call, or no?
Would you like them to introduce
Sure.
themselves?
I would love to. It would be nice to meet because we are all colleagues.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Before we introduce ourselves, so let me provide you like some information about the current situation in Thailand. But
Yes.
first of all, on behalf of the Institute for the Promotion of Teaching Science and Technology and myself, I very welcome you to the crucial seminar on science competency for Thailand's future generation. This seminar holds a great importance as we shape the future of science education in our country. As we know the contemporary education, what kind of the contemporary education should be. However, in Thailand, we currently utilize the revised learning standards and indicators in science education, which announced in 2017. This revised version has been developed in alignment with the basic education core curriculum BE 2551 AD 2008, which is more than a decade. the indicator does not show a strong focus on developing and assessing students' ability for doing science. Most of the statement of the indicators just required students to be able to explain phenomena using evidence. Therefore, ability for doing inquiry and applying to the real world rarely occur in a today classroom. Regarding to the current situation, IPST has initiated a project to revamp the science curriculum in anticipation of forthcoming changes of the national education curriculum. The objective is to ensure that the new curriculum is tailored to our country's needs and resonate with the global community, equipping the next generation with essential scientific competencies. To this end, we recently organized a seminar to gather insights from international experts. And on behalf of IPST audience, I want to warmly express our sincere gratitude to Associate Professor Dr. Todd Molford for your generous sharing of valuable experience and your insights today. I'm sure that your insights will significantly shape the Thailand science curriculum's future development. And with the anticipation of insightful discussion and valuable contributions, I wish this seminar will be a very productive. And maybe you know my name and my current position already, so I will let the other audience to introduce themselves. So maybe start from on the screen. I don't know we have the same screen or not, but start from Dr. Pojana.
Okay, good morning and good evening again. Okay, my name is Pojana Dok Tan Yong. I am a project manager of this project, and I am a head of the compulsory unit of the Institute of Promotion Teaching and Science and Technology, or IPST. I'm graduated in the science education, and my major is the biology. I has more than 10 years experiences in the primary teaching and learning, and I in part of the writing primary textbooks of the IPST. Okay, next.
Me, please. Oh, Dr. Govin.
Sorry. I muted my microphone. My name is Govin Chumkang. Today I'm gonna be your moderator, but my job is I'm academic officer who responsible for physics textbook and physics curriculum in Thailand. So mostly I focus on high school physics education.
Okay, next, Kamonali.
Hi, Dr. Molford. My name is Kamonari Laikram. I'm a science educator in the compulsory science department. I just graduated from Canada last year, U of A. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet someone from Canada as well.
I know University of Alberta is a very good school. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much.
But it's a little bit colder than Thailand.
Way colder.
Thanapan, please.
Good evening, Professor Todd. My name is Thanapan Charlie. I'm science educator, work for IPSC Thailand as science educator. Glad to meet you today.
Pleasure.
Next, Natida.
Hello, Professor. My name is Natida Promyor. I'm science educator from compulsory science unit, and my work focused on elementary level. Nice to meet you.
Okay,
Nice to meet you
next,
too.
Latapon.
Is that everyone?
Professor, I'm Ratapon
sorry.
Lin, and I am a member of
compulsory science unit also ค่ะ nice to meet you
Pleasure.
next นิพนธ์
Hi, my name is Nipon Janlen from Compulsory Science Unit.
ยศิน
Uh, Good morning, Mr. Milford. I am Yasin Kitichandalopat, and I am Academic Officer of Composite Science Unit IPST. My background is about biology. Nice to meet you.
นันทยา
Pleasure.
Hi,
This is a
I'm
big
Nataya Akra Ari. I'm working on high school biology curriculum. Nice to meet you.
สุนัตตา
Hello, I'm Sunanda Yomyat. I'm a member of Chemistry and Biology Department. I work in Competency and Biology Science Curriculum Development. Nice to meet you.
สวรักษ์
Good evening, Professor. I'm Saolak Boin. I'm a science educator in the compulsory science unit IPST. Nice to meet you.
วิมลมาศ please
Hi, I am Vimonmat Sinaran. You can call me Mai. I'm from Compulsory Science Unit and I'm graduated in pure science chemistry. Now I focus on lower secondary level in chemistry.
lower secondary chemistry.
โสภิตา please
Hi, okay ค่ะ Hi, I am academic officer at the PST. I'm in the field of physics and earth science at department.
สุธาทิพย์ please
Hello, my name is Fatip. I come from the Department of Chemistry and Biology. Nice to meet you.
Alanit please
Hi, I'm Oranit Chushai. I'm science educator and focusing on the earth science education.
สนธิ please
Hi, Professor. My name is Santi Poncheya from Chemistry and Biology Department, and my background is chemistry.
กมลลักษณ์ please
Morning, professors. I'm Kamalak Thanatgit. I'm focused on science education. Thank you.
กมลวัน please
Hi, I'm Kamonwan Kiatkawinkun. My major background is at chemistry. Thank you.
ศิริลักษณ์ please
Hi, Professor. I'm Sirat Pixi. I come from chemistry and biology. Background chemistry. Nice to meet you.
อรสา please
Okay. Hello. I'm Orasa Shuskun. I work at Chemistry and Biology Department. Nice to meet you.
ลักษพล please
Yes. For introduce myself.
yes
I'm Raksapol Saranwong. I work for Physics Department, IPST. Thank you.
สุนิสา please
You have to remember everyone. I'm
yeah
sorry.
yeah
It's a lot. It's a lot.
we have 30
I know. I thought I did not know how many people would be here. There are so many, but that's good. Everyone gets a turn. It's okay.
yeah Sunisa please okay maybe someone
Okay.
not comfortableวิลาศ
Anyone else?
วิลาศ
Hello, Professor Thomas. I'm Milad. My background is biology curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you.
ภูริวัฒน์
Good morning, everyone. My name is Purivat Tantipat. I work in Physics and Earth Science Unit.
อิชพลค่ะ I I'm not sure. I missed someone. You can introduce yourself.
Speak up, yes.
Chanalong, please.
Morning. My name is Chanalong and work as academic officer at the chemistry unit. Thank you.
Okay. Panika, please. Okay, someone in trouble for the workplace. Maybe not comfortable.
Okay.
Okay.
It's everybody has choice. Yes.
Yeah. So let's get started. You can proceed what you prepare for us to present.
Before the start, I take a photo together again.
Oh, let's have a group photo.
So, is it?
It's like a for formal.
4 more. Good.
For send
Yeah.
information to the okay. One. Take a photo.
I like someone is on a train, so it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to do photo? It's good.
Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Smile.
It's a great idea.
Okay. Again. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you. I did not know what this seminar would be like exactly. I thought maybe there would be many people like myself, not just me, but I will do my best inside this. So first off, thank you. What Kapkunma Cup, right? I think so. And my Thai is not very good, so that's good. I remember my numbers. My favorite thing in going to Thailand is talking about numbers, and I didn't practice for what my numbers were, but it was always a little bit of fun. So the way I approached this was 2 things. You assigned me 6 questions, I think. I have my notes here, and I will send my notes to you. I didn't make a PowerPoint presentation, but I can explain what it was I was thinking about, and you can pause and ask me questions as this progresses through. So we could address the questions first, and then the next thing is I have a PDF of the competencies that I can share, and I can offer a couple of questions, or I can seek some elaboration or some suggestions around what how your competencies are set out and written. So one's a bit more global for the 6 questions, and then we could just look at the competencies, if that sounds okay as a progression. And
Yeah,
I promise you, and I promise you, you can ask me questions later. I'm interested in this, obviously. I have a little bit of experience in this area. I do consultations with government in British Columbia quite often, not always in science education, but lots of different places around education and teaching. So maybe I can be of use to you. I don't know. When I looked at your timeline, you're early on. So after you figure out kind of your competencies, it looks like you go a little bit more into some of the curriculum and some of the instruction and your teaching designs. And I also see that, mandatory science is up to year 9 in Thailand. And I don't know if I was right, but it looks like there's lots of chemistry people out there. Not as many biology and physics, but lots of chemistry. That's what I saw. So the first question, and I can type it inside what the process was, but it asked at the 4 competencies. So your 4 competencies of scientific investigation, interpreting data scientifically, explaining phenomena scientifically, and evaluating arguments and using scientific data for decision making. Those 4 competencies. they offer coverage in the K to 12 science education? So that was kind of the first idea. So the way I think about this is I say, okay, here's your 4 competencies. Now, what is it that from my perspective, what should be involved in kind of K to 12 science education? So the first one, I think, if I think about K to 12 science education, I think it should be scientific inquiry and process skills. So is there evidence in your competencies of the inquiry process? And I think that inquiry should be scaffolded. So inquiry for children who are year 1 to 3 is very structured and a fair bit of help, hopefully, as they progress, and teachers need to be explained to this, and they, even inside a classroom across 1 year, you would begin inquiry, maybe in year 9, for example, you begin inquiry with lots of support for the students, and then you back off the support if they have the abilities to be successful inside. That's the idea, how I think about it. And then, process skills that I see in your competencies are things like asking questions or formulating hypotheses or planning and conducting investigations, or you said building hypotheses. There's another one inside here where it's observation, but also, making predictions. I'm using process skills. I think for my first idea of your 4 competencies, I think scientific inquiry and process skills are really strongly covered, particularly obviously in competency 1. And the progress from simple investigations to complex experimental designs across the stages is very clear, and you should be very proud of yourself and recognize you've done a nice job with that one. That came across quite clearly. The next one, when I think about K to 12 education, is data analysis and interpretation. So in your competencies, I see evidence of organizing, I see evidence of representing and interpreting data. And I also see it's that same kind of progression from simple to complex statistical analysis. And we could talk a little bit when we look at the competencies inside there, what you mean by stat analysis, but I do see you showing evidence of different levels of complexity and how individuals will both collect data, analyze that data, and then use that data to support some of their inferences or some of their inquiries. So I thought you did a nice job with data analysis and interpretation. And obviously that's, it's tied into your second competency. The third thing I see in K to 12 science education is scientific explanations and modeling. When you talk about explaining phenomena scientifically, it's addressed inside there. What I see evidence, and I know this is kind of maybe PISA or NGSS or some other places, but this kind of constructing explanations and making predictions based on evidence, and then simple observations are more complex. I do notice there's kind of a social environmental phenomena that comes in later in your competencies, and we could have a conversation about that a little bit. And then the other one, argumentation and critical thinking. I think competency 4, you're evaluating arguments and using scientific data for decision making, is well done. Now, so those are the ones that I think you did a good job. And I promise you I'll send this to you, but one of them, when I think about this, would be one that in K to 12 science is this kind of application of scientific knowledge. So I think it's partially covered. So there's emphasis on using scientific knowledge to explain phenomena and make decisions. It's kind of in competency 3 and 4. It could possibly, you could think about application of science knowledge. Could you take application of science knowledge and build it across all of your competencies, not just staying in number 3 and number 4? So would there be examples of inside scientific investigations? Would there be an application inside there as you might offer? Another one that I thought was partially covered and is embedded is kind of a nature of science approach. So your NOS idea, you don't explicitly mention nature of science inside your competencies, but I think it's underlying. So you might want, yeah, please.
Can I share your document on this screen?
Yeah, we can. we can share it. I feel like, yeah, I can pull it up. I can see if I can pull. You can pull this one up.
Okay.
Do you want me to? Oh, it came across nicely.
Okay.
So
now you
yeah, yeah, no, totally. I feel like I don't have. I would have made, if I'd have known, I would have made a PowerPoint or something for this. I just don't have every single one. So,
And now you are here.
So do you want to, I don't know, do you want to talk about, do you want to use this document to talk about competencies? Would that be better, more useful? You tell me, we can talk about it.
You can give an overview of what
Okay.
for
Yes.
competency.
This is my overview first, and then I could unpack this a little bit. It just means I'm talking. It means I talk a little bit. I'm sorry.
And we can go back one by one. Let's start with overview and go back to the nature of science.
Okay.
You left.
Okay, good. Yep. So the way in your competencies, what you might want to think about is there room for you to mention nature of science more specifically inside here? So is it? I think it's hidden inside. It's embedded inside here. But if you're thinking about nature of science and how, what the purpose for science is and how we, as science educators, want to both help teachers and help students to understand that science is only has very, very specific purposes. Would you see any space for that? And also with your instruction and how you work with pre-service teachers, would that be a useful thing for you to discuss? That was one of the ones I was thinking about. There's also, and PISA doesn't speak about this, but the NGSS speaks also about technology and engineering. There isn't a whole bunch of technology and engineering inside here, and from design principles or from technology and what technology is, not just on a Zoom channel, but simple machines or simple ideas from a technological, and all technology is something that helps us, that aids us in solving problems or makes our life a little bit easier. So is there room for a discussion about technology or engineering practices? That's one of the ones I was thinking about. So my first question was just, are the competencies, do they cover a kind of main focus of science teaching and learning? And my answer to you is yes. I think you've done a very, very good job, but also as an academic and as someone who looks at this from arm's length, there's some things inside here that, things like nature of science, things like engineering technology, things like maybe how science knowledge gets applied might be a place for you to think about. I don't know though. This is entirely up to you to determine what this is. And I'll send you my documents. The second question you asked me is each science competency suitable to be a competency for science teaching and for learning? And when I look at this one, so what's your first one? Well, it's scientific investigations. I think this is highly suitable for science teaching and learning because it aligns well with the scientific method, and it also aligns well with inquiry-based instructional approaches. So if you're using this and talking to teachers about what this might look like and scaffolding it all the way from kindergarten to year 9, I think it's very, very well aligned with what you're trying to achieve. The second one was interpreting data scientifically. So I saw it's organization, representation, interpretation. It moves from simple data to more complex. It focuses on identifying kind of patterns, relationships, and trends inside your data. I think it's very, very suitable. But I want to commend you because I think it does a really good job of developing crucial skills in 2 areas that are very, very important. One of them is data literacy. So this idea of, can individuals actually understand how we collect data from observational means, and then can they collect it, can they present it or collate it, and then can they use it to make some informed decisions? So you've done a great job with kind of the literacy ideas and then also analytical thinking, mathematical and kind of computational thinking inside. It was quite strong. The third competency you have is explaining a phenomena scientifically. I saw that it focuses on constructing explanations and making predictions based on evidence. Progress from simple events to more complex, and that's where you bring in social environmental phenomena. It also emphasizes kind of justification, so why you do something, and revisions of explanation. So that's where, for example, nature of science is embedded inside your competencies, in this idea that science is only as good as the data we have and how that data aligns with our current understanding of certain constructs. And we are constantly in a process of revising our understanding from science. And if teachers and students can take that away, you are helping the students and then future citizens within Thailand to increase their scientific literacy, I'd suggest. Similarly, evaluating arguments and using scientific data for decision-making. I see it as being constructing and evaluating arguments, which is excellent. It progresses, and there's also this consideration of kind of social, economic, and ethical issues. I know they come at the later stages, but those stood out for me as being quite appropriate. So it was quite suitable, and it really kind of works towards what I see as scientific literacy and an informed citizen. It also tries to, especially later on, it takes scientific knowledge and applies it to real world problems and aligns with scientific argumentation skills. So similar situations inside here, but when I look at, I see those as being very, very strong. You could enhance these potentially by thinking about, could I integrate technology and digital literacy skills inside here? Are you interested in any aspect of digital literacy? I'm interested in how interdisciplinary connections will happen inside here. So how these things apply in the domains of physics or in the domains of chemistry, for example. And then the other one would be, would you be interested in having discussions about collaboration or communication skills? Because we do understand now PISA moves in this direction. The curriculum in British Columbia moves in this direction, where it's one thing to have some of these skills. It's another one to work with other people in the pursuit of science, but also once you have that, are you interested in trying to have individuals communicate that? So communicating it orally, communicating it pictorially, like visual representations, or communicating it in a written format. That might be something to think about. Or the question was, is it suitable for science teaching and learning? So yeah, they are very suitable. And my job ultimately, I thought, was to ask or add, pardon me, some additional things. So we should pause for a second. And I want to make sure that this is useful for the audience as they're listening, because you folks are very respectful. Also, your culture is very respectful. And if you want me to go slower, or I promise I will write this stuff up and give it back to you. I wasn't sure how the format would be. Is this meeting your needs a little bit?
Yes. Anyone would like to add a comment or question?
Yeah.
So I just want to let you know that we also have the technology and engineering competency and mathematics competency. So
there are other places, right?
There is some place, and we also have like some kind of the overall competency for all subjects. So the communication will be in that.
It's higher, right?
Yeah, for competency.
Yeah, totally. And I can only see this one, so my job is to look at this and offer recommendations. But of course, you could look at my recommendations and say, Anna, I don't agree with you or agree. That's fine. In the academy, we get to agree and disagree. Yeah. But I think the nature of science might be something for you to maybe think about. I don't know. Because nature of science is, yeah, it's an important idea, and many people who study science and have undergraduate degrees inside science aren't always exposed to the nature of the scientific discipline. So so the next one, number 3, you've asked me, are the 4 science competencies you've identified, are they aligned with science competencies from international perspective? So I could talk about the international perspective of a couple of places. So we could talk about NGSS. So we could talk about what America looks at for Common Core standards and how that moves across. The NGSS has, as you probably are aware because you've referenced it, it's got 8. It's kind of got 8 science and engineering practices. The ones that so the first one as far as questions and defining problems, and number 3 is planning, carrying out investigations. Number 4 is analyzing, interpreting data. Number 6 is constructing explanations and design solutions. 7 is engaging arguments from evidence. And 8 is obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information. The ones that I don't see inside here are maybe developing and using models. So I'm not sure if that was purposeful or not purposeful when I presented it. And then using mathematics and computational thinking. I understand that you may have competencies for mathematics, but the way we understand STEM and how these overlap a fair bit is individuals need numeracy and literacy skills across multiple classes. And every teacher, I think in Canada, I say this, every teacher is a language or a reading and writing teacher, but they're also a numeracy teacher. It doesn't matter what class they are in, and this stuff can come across all over. So it might be something to think about. And I think that's the NGSS approach to it. It's all. So I see very, very strong alignment between your practices and what NGSS has identified. But for maybe practice 2 and 5, which are the ones I spoke about, models and mathematical and computational thinking. Number 8, there's a little bit of stuff about obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information. Certainly obtaining and evaluating is there. There isn't a whole bunch of communication inside here, but again, you've said it's in other places. Sometimes I worry that if a competency is outside in another environment, will it get missed or not missed inside the science aspect? That's all, nothing else. The next one I looked at was a PISA. So, PISA has, and PISA 2025 has changed a little bit. It's moving away from the label of scientific literacy you're aware, but it's explain phenomena scientifically, evaluate and design scientific inquiry, and interpret data and evidence scientifically. I thought that your framework inside here was very strong and very closely aligned with what the PISA framework is. And I'm sure if I had a conversation with you back and where this has come from, PISA was something potentially that you referenced when you were building up what these were. So I lived in Australia for a little while, and I go back in and look at the Australian curriculum sometimes because they go through evolutions. And when I lived in Australia, they had state curriculum. So Queensland had a curriculum, New South Wales had a curriculum, and now they've combined into a national curriculum. It happened kind of maybe 2014 or 2015. The only one that I saw that didn't align with your framework was that same one about communication. So entirely fine. I want to show you something in a second. So the other one I looked at was the United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom has scientific attitudes, experimental skills and investigation, analysis and evaluation, measurement, and you're aligned quite nicely with it. You don't speak a lot about attitudes towards science in the competencies. So are you interested in that? And then the other one would be measurement. There wasn't a whole bunch referenced inside measurement. But again, that's across multiple countries. And of course, you can't be perfectly aligned with everything. But I thought that compared to the international documents, there was good overlap. Can I share? I can share something with you right now if that's okay. Can we
Yes,
not
yes.
share the? Yeah. I want to show
Okay.
you. Okay, I want to show you. Maybe this will be interesting for you. I need to pull it up. Let me just get it for a second. I want to show you the work inside Canada. I just wasn't ready, so just give me a second. Take me 1 second. I'll pull this up. Is it here? Yeah. Okay. So let's go back and I can share a document. So here you'll see. Maybe you've referenced these, but here you'll see, and let's increase this. Let me just move the bar. So here you'll see competencies for the science K to grade 10 curriculum in British Columbia. I won't read all these situations to you, but I want you to look at the questioning and predicting inside here. So the first one, and I can also send this to you. It's easy to get, but the questioning and predicting one, you can see that there's evidence in your first competency. So your scientific investigation includes and is embedded inside questioning and predicting. Also, planning and conducting. Your first competency is captured inside there as far as how we go about experimentation. I thought the process and analyzing data information, that's really interpreting data scientifically. So, what the competencies look like specifically, but there's good alignment inside there. Evaluating, yeah, that was number 4. So if you look at your competency for evaluating arguments and using scientific data for decision making, yours is captured inside there. Applying and innovating, I didn't really see that one, so we could look at this for a second. And then for communication, I thought communication was in number 3. We could expand that one a little bit, but it was explaining phenomena scientifically. So it would seem that the opportunity to explain phenomena scientifically inside here would be opportunity for communication. How you would communicate, I'm not sure. It's a little bit different. It's up to you. There wasn't a whole bunch of this one, and that doesn't necessarily mean that Thailand should have it, but this one's called applying and innovating. So it's taking part in caring for self, family, classroom, school through personal approaches, transfer and apply learning to new situations, generate and introduce new and refined ideas when solving problems. So it's a little bit more, I'll stop sharing for a second. It's a little bit more internal about what the student is trying to do. And there's some movement inside Canada to think about having students think more about, be self-reflective learners and have some sense of agency in how they're going about their learning. So what that one does is, in a science class, you bring in some opportunities of how are you approaching this scientific investigation? What have you done in the past? How has this worked for you? Are you trying some different strategies? And also, are you taking some of your learning scientifically and applying it to other aspects of your own life? So not a criticism of anything that I've seen inside here, just a different perspective. And also some of that stuff, I don't always see it in, certainly not in NGSS. I don't see it in Australia or in maybe a little bit in the UK, but I don't see it in PISA either. So and again, as a follow-up, ask me all the questions you'd like to, and I can send you lots of these documents but this is only if I'm useful for you. If I'm not useful, you can just, thank me, and maybe the next time I'm in Bangkok, I will come and visit your institute. Is everyone on this call at the same place? No.
No. We are at home. Some of us are at home.
Okay. I know, and someone was on a train too, so it's good.
Yeah.
And I like that those, yeah. So that's good. All right, so those were the first 3 questions. Do you want me to pause for a second and I can address any questions, or I can just kind of keep going? It's up to you. I'm happy either way.
Any question, my colleague?
I have a question.
Please.
Okay. In our side competency, the first competency, the scientific investigation, I saw that you mentioned about familiar. Can you explain?
In the first one, so I mentioned, oh, you mean in our discussions? I said something, maybe remind me what I said, sorry. What if I go through the questions and then we go through what comments I have made on the competencies? Would that be okay? Because I promise we can go through everything I've written down and everything I've made comments about. Yeah, I would like to share with you, and I will offer what my thoughts were upon that.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that I want to make sure I'm doing my job for you, because you asked me to answer these kind of 6 questions, so I made some notes on the 6 questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
No, it's a good question, so thank you, and it's good. I'm glad. Thank you for looking at what I have done. It's okay. So the fourth question you asked me: is the description of each scientific competency in each stage written well enough to show a clear picture of expected learning outcomes? So again, I went through every single one of these. So the first one I looked at was scientific investigations, and I saw clear progression from asking simple questions to making predictions, good progression to more complex investigations, also introducing the relationships around variables, clear advancement in complexity, hypothesis formulation, consideration of data quality, and and kind of well-defined progression. Showed clear progression, I think. I wonder if, and maybe this will come from when you work with how this applies to different content areas, or when you work with teachers with the curriculum or instructional sizes, but could you offer specific examples of expected investigations at each phase? So when I look at the first phase of an investigation, so stage 1 for students in grade 1 to 3, ask questions that stem from observing familiar phenomena based on individual experiences or interest. These questions are possible to investigate. So would it be useful for you to offer a couple of examples of what it might look like for students inside that competency and how it kind of progressed? That might be something to take a look at, and we'll unpack those a little bit, I promise. The second one was interpreting data scientifically. So clarity across the stages. I see the focus for basic data organization and representation. Good progression to more complex data, for example, bar charts. And we should have a discussion about that too, because there's, a bar chart versus a histogram is very specific data, right? So you need to have bar chart as a discrete measurement as degree of there might be ordinality inside the data, but really a bar chart or a histogram as you progress forward has different representations. Therefore, if you're going to do that kind of competency at that grade level, it really says, here's the type of investigation, here's the type of data I want to be collecting inside of it. It can't be a continuous data to offer a bar chart. That's what I see and that's what I read. But I'm interested in statistics too. I see the advancement into handling larger data sets and also kind of moving into identifying trends. And yeah, it was well defined from a progression point of view. My example is that I just had it a second ago, but it's, would you have examples of specific data interpretation skills at each stage? So what would you like the individuals to have from their data analysis, and what does that look like, and how they would go about collecting it? I think if you gave a couple of examples inside here, and maybe that's the next phase of what you're thinking about, that might be useful, and it might help both the instructors the teachers, and maybe it's resources to support them or examples inside here, but it always helps with a couple of, we'd like them to be able to do this. Okay, here's an example of what you would do in a classroom for how they would do this. Explaining phenomena scientifically. There was focus on constructing simple explanations based on evidence, good progression to incorporating scientific knowledge and explanations, clear advancement to more complex phenomena using multiple sources, and well-defined kind of expectations of explaining a social environmental phenomena. It was really interesting as far as the social environmental phenomena would progress forward. Again, I think about what examples of this might, what types of phenomena might be appropriate for students as they progress across what these are. And then for the evaluating arguments and using scientific data for decision making, there really wasn't anything at stage one, and we could have a conversation about why you don't have anything inside that kind of continuum. Is that something that you feel like can students in year 1 to year 3, is there a feeling that that skill set is beyond them, evaluating arguments using scientific data for decision making? Because it could be scaffolded, I think. Yeah, we could look for examples of it, but same situation where it's introducing claim and evidence and arguments, clear progression of constructing and evaluating arguments. You also introduce some degree of decision making from it. So you construct and evaluate the argument, and then based upon that, you offer a decision, and that that decision has kind of broader impacts when there's well-defined expectations. I kind of saw that one as being useful as well. It did stand out for me that it was, if I have it here, it was lacking. Yeah, it was lacking kind of anything in the first couple of stages for how that works. Be happy to talk about that if we're interested. So 2 more questions inside here. So this one's got a developmental stages, right? So is the description of each science competency at each stage appropriate for students in this kind of stage? So if I look at scientific investigations, so stage 1, grade 1 to 3, and the ages are 6 to 9 in Canada. So it'd be asking questions from observing familiar phenomena, making predictions, plan simple investigations. So I think it aligns with concrete operational stages from Piaget's ideas, and focusing on observable phenomena and simple cause and effect relationships. So again, I was quite impressed with the work that you've done inside here, and I can see alignment there nicely. At that same, for the interpreting data scientifically, it's organizing data in pictographs, tables, diagrams, identify feature patterns. I think I'm familiar with mathematics and kind of science curriculum inside here, and it matches early elementary students' ability to categorize and represent simple data. So nice job inside there. Explain phenomena scientifically was construct explanations based on evidence from investigations. It encourages basic logical thinking and evidence-based reasoning, appropriate for this age, and then evaluating arguments and using scientific data. This wasn't really addressed. Maybe it's too advanced for this group. That'd be, you folks are smarter than I am inside some of those areas, and there's a fair number of individuals on your team that are early childhood educators that would be familiar with the literature more so upon that. So I would assume it was a purposeful omission, and take that one. I'm happy to answer questions, but I'd be interested in actually exploring why you have done that. But that's not a bad thing. I'm interested. So stage 2, so the grades kind of 4 to 6, 9 to 12-year-olds. Ask questions leading to investigations, make predictions based on data, plan experiments with variables. So it moves into abstract thinking and ability to consider multiple variables at the same time. So it's kind of moving the individuals forward in a nicely appropriate progression. For the data scientifically, organize data in diagram, bar charts, identify relationship trends. Growing ability to understand more complex. In my comment about like diagrams or bar charts inside, it goes back to the type of data you'd have to use for that. But if that's what you're doing, just support it with some degree of examples for how it might look. Explains phenomena scientifically. Construct explanations using scientific knowledge and evidence. increasing ability to integrate knowledge and observations, and then evaluate arguments using scientific data, identify claims, evidence, reasoning, and scientific arguments. I think, yeah, there wasn't anything that stood out for me. Like when I went through every single one of these, there wasn't a whole bunch that, like, it just felt like it was there's kind of an appropriate progression and alignment with cognitive development stages for how we see individuals progressing within the literature and with our understanding. You're moving from kind of concrete, abstract thinking and concrete to abstract, which makes a whole bunch of sense as we understand. There's also kind of a simple to complex task and narrow to broad considerations. It's consistent with what I understand, and my background is in science education, but it's also in educational psychology. So a little bit of understanding from the progression point of view. It does make some sense. I think from a feedback or from a question point of view for yourselves is minor adjustments. The early introduction of basic concepts. So could there be some basic elements of evaluating arguments, introduce simplified form in stage 1 to provide a foundation for later development? So if you haven't introduced these at the earlier stages, is there a concern that maybe individuals might not have the background knowledge or background understanding for what you're trying to do as it progresses forward? It might be something to think about. I wonder about if you tried to, and this is maybe the examples you did, but if you tried to make the applications, if you make some of the examples explicit with real world applications, it might be relevance or engagement for adolescents as it moves on to stage 3 and stage 4. There's also, you're aware of this too, but there's also, here's what the kind of developmental stages move down, but you've got to build in a fair bit of variance where individuals develop at different states, and we have a fair bit of individuality and some exceptionality inside here. So is there flexibility in how you might accommodate for what these differences are? But I thought developmentally, I could see quite clear evidence of the moving from concrete to abstract, the movement of my other kind of comments inside with simple to complex task, and then was kind of narrow to broad considerations. I can see where this stuff's coming from, and I have lots of support and lots of time for what you're offering. And then the last question you asked me was, do I have any other comments or suggestions? I can write this one up if you'd like, but I think, is there a possibility for integration of technology and digital skills? Is there any emphasis on interdisciplinary connections and systems thinking? The inclusion of engineering practices and design thinking I thought about, and more explicit focus on kind of nature of science. I've said those things a couple of times inside here, or I've alluded to them, but they might be something you might want to think about that might be useful or worth making a little bit more explicit. That's kind of the idea. So those were the kind of the 6 questions you asked me to take a look at. I'd be happy if we could take a look at what my comments are on your specific competencies. And I'm not suggesting that they're right or wrong, but yeah, there are some things that kind of stood out for me that might be shared. So if we put that document back up, the PDF that I sent to you for my notes, I'd be happy to play around with that. Did that come across okay?
Yes.
Could we put the, I have the PDF as well if you want, but maybe you should run the show.
I will share the document that you sent.
Yeah, the one that I sent and said, yeah, perfect. Okay. So so in the first one, when you say the ability to ask questions, so I put some highlighting up on this just because it's how I think a little bit. The first, so if we look at 1.1, ask questions that stem from observing familiar phenomena based on individual experiences and interests. These questions are possible to investigate. So when I look down the column inside, you can see the little red line. you have this kind of idea about design methods. So when it says these questions are possible to investigate, are you actually saying there that these questions are possible to investigate? This is kind of a nature of science idea, but possible to investigate empirically, or possible to investigate within designed kind of methods of process. Because you can investigate any question, but if you're thinking more from a nature of science point of view, you might want to narrow that one down and kind of ask yourself, really, there's only certain questions that can be answered within the domain of what science, what the role of science is. That's what kind of stood out for me a little bit. That's all. The next, so 1, 2, make predictions that are consistent with the questions that arise from observing familiar phenomena. Yeah, I get it. I only circled predictions there because it's a fundamental process skills that I'm interested in. Can we go back to 1-1 for a second? And my other question would be, is it familiar phenomena? So what is kind of familiar phenomena? And are you focusing on this familiar phenomena so that because these individuals are young, because you want to use it upon what their worldview is, and you want to stay in a space that's somewhat comfortable for them and doesn't extend out. I get it. I understand. I just wanted to kind of ask about that situation. And then my last one inside, the 1-3, you said plan simple. Is it simple that you want, or is it plan age appropriate investigations? Because those are two different kind of constructs. Simple is, simple almost diminishes a little bit. I would think more kind of what's an age appropriate for these individuals inside, because they could be, from a perspective of someone who's in grade 1, it might not be a simple exercise. So it just this is semantics, but this is stuff that I come across and I think about. So people, you've asked me these questions, and I'm happy to entertain any of these. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to ask questions about those? I'll keep going. Sounds good. All right. So next one, so stage 2. Oh no, we'll stay in stage 2. Let's just go down the column. So I've got stage 2 inside here, and it's ask questions that stem from observing familiar phenomena, which leads to conducting science investigations. So the familiar one, it was the same kind of question for me. So because you have familiar in kind of grade 1 and 3, I see it. I wonder in grade 4, I wonder if it's I wonder if there's a way to scaffold the situation. It's not a familiar phenomena, but is this a chance to begin to move in just really kind of observation? And by the time they're in grade 6, there can be some degree of sophistication. So I wonder if you need to spend your whole time inside kind of a familiar phenomena with what that one is. Just an example inside. I really liked 2-2, where you're talking about you're based on data from observations, experiences, scientific concepts, or principles from scientific investigation. So you're really using that. And the way I read this is you're building up these individuals' background knowledge, and you're really, all the stuff that you're actually doing is you're reading it and feeding it through the lens of how science works. So there's a real kind of nature of science exercise inside that. So it was positive. 2-3. See that when you have the word then after at the end of for the last clause, I think I would just get rid of it because it's a little bit noisy. It doesn't add anything, and really you can see the progression inside what the competency is for these individuals. So they're going to plan scientific investigations by conducting explorations and experiments to answer questions. Then when designing it, they identify relationships and then conduct the investigation according to design methods. You don't need to see that. It does kind of come inside what this process is, but that's just it's entirely up to you for how the process works. That was kind of my recommendation. You'll see this arrow at the very bottom of on page 2. It's just me looking at and seeing the progression for how this works. I tend to like they're supposed to work from left to right for how this is, and it came across nicely. We can go back to stage 3 for this one, and I only look at. So when I look at the progression across here, we kind of familiar phenomena, and then it's going to some degree of a phenomenon. Okay, so there's some generality inside here. And then, so make predictions and or from a hypothesis that are consistent with questions based on data from observed experiences, scientific concepts, or principles for scientific investigation. Okay, good. Background knowledge inside there. Make predictions and or formulate hypotheses. Why did I do Maybe because I probably identified that to ask myself, okay, what's the appropriate time developmentally for you to bring in the idea about how you would formulate a hypothesis and moving into a null or alternative hypothesis kind of construct inside that build. That's the only reason I would have identified it. Just I'll think out loud and kind of say, is that an appropriate time for it? I do see the progression inside and this consistency across. Can I ask you a question about why things are underlined inside here? I was trying to figure it out. What is it about the underlining that holds value or is important?
The underline, right? It's something that we add from each state to each state.
I see. So every
A
time you go
different
through
thing.
so essentially you're tracking your edits a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So
Okay, got it.
the audience or the people who read this document can easily see that what is different between the state 1 to 2 and 2
Yeah, I see
to
it.
3. That's kind of.
Okay. Yeah. It did
And
like
Professor, can I ask you a question? You
yeah,
mentioned
of course.
about the thing that you noticed that the formulate hypothesis, is it appropriate to which state to represent this one? Do you have any idea about this
No,
thing?
I think it's probably appropriate. I think you have to build some variance inside here. So there could be some individuals at younger grades who could build up hypothesis and you let them forward. And there's some individuals who, like, I have students in undergraduate or graduate who don't know how to do these things, right? Like there's a whole bunch of variance across this. I see the progression, but you also have to think about, okay, don't tie yourself to this idea that the only time it's appropriate to formulate a hypothesis is at students in grade 7, 8, and grade 7s to 9, where possibly if you build this correctly, so the idea about stage 2, some students can build simple questions and hypothesis earlier on inside that phase. Don't be afraid to don't make it maybe explicit inside this, but also don't be afraid to let the students go in that direction if they want to, and then use it as a bit of a teaching moment. It's okay.
Yeah, because we think that we think that from our experience, state 3 may be appropriate because state 2 like they may be too young, but we can let them practice.
Yeah, and it's a little bit about the teacher sometimes too, right? So where the comfort is, you're gonna have to to build up this kind of this requires you to I would guess do a fair bit of stuff on retraining your teachers, both when they're in university for pre-service, but also the individuals you're teaching right now, because this is I bet a pretty large departure from the stuff you're doing right now. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool. Great. I'm excited about it. That's good. I made the same comment about get rid of the then. I loved inside 3.4 where making suggestions for improving what these methods are. So again, moving into this, thinking about quality of your collected data and then making some degree of suggestions. I was interested in how come if you look at 4.3, this is the first time, so grade 10 and grade 12, it's resource limitation, ethics, environmental, social, personal impact when planning investigations. It seems to come, there's no real mention of anything related to that in the previous day. So 1.3, 2.3, 3.3 have no thought about resource limitation, ethics, environmental, social, personal impacts. But I don't know about you folks, but I can tell you that individuals in certainly elementary school and middle school and in high school inside Canada are having conversations about resource extraction or having our impact upon the planet and how the decisions we make have some consequence. So would you think there might be some way to gently move that down the continuum a little bit? That was one thing that kind of stood out for me.
Thank you. We think about that.
Yeah, of course. Like that's all this is, right? It's a conversation. You show this to me and I'd be interested in stuff that I've seen before. I really liked, so I'm really complimentary for your interpreting data scientifically. I think this kind of data literacy aspect is appropriate. The first one was organize the investigations data to align with its characteristics and objective. To align with its characteristics and objectives and represent the data in a pictograph table. My comment about this one, okay, I see the simple path and it progresses through. When I dug into these situations, it's going to be data, pictograph, table, or diagram. Okay, that's fine. I can see it being appropriate. And, you know, you see for like grade ones, you actually can make a pictograph or some table that's appropriate to collect. My comment too in stage 2.1, where you're representing diagram or some degree of bar chart, that it's just, you're gonna have to give examples for this because it's pretty specific. There's only certain types of data that lend themselves to what bar charts are. So do you want to narrow yourself down that much? Because as you progress forward inside here, suddenly the data's in a bar chart, pictograph, graph, or pie chart, and then suddenly it's bar chart, pictograph, graph, or pie chart. I wonder if there's a way to back this off to not be so specific in how the data can be represented, but it'd be like, could you represent the one in most suitable for this, or represent it in one format where, as it moves to stage 3 or stage 4, it's multiple or the most appropriate format that's available for the data. I don't know. It felt a little bit narrow for me. That's all. And then if you look at 1.2, I think it's identify and describe, not or. So you'd really want the individuals to both identify and describe significant features, patterns, or relationships in the data. I think I would make it inclusive. You can make it an and or, but the way you've written it is it's one or the other, and I'm not sure if that's exactly what you'd like. I like in 3.2, I like your idea from an anomalies perspective. There's some real complexity inside here, which is exciting. And then, oh yeah, what did I say? Why did I identify appropriate statistics? Maybe that's the one maybe it was when you did appropriate statistics inside here, would it be the one that's up top for 1, where you said, organize multiple data sets and align with its characteristics and objectives and represent the data. Well, you said appropriate statistics here, so wouldn't it be represent the data in the most appropriate format, as opposed to saying, just listing off what all of these situations are? I'm not sure if that's kind of the stuff I was thinking about, where I don't know if it's useful representing like the data in bar chart, pictograph, graph, or pie chart, in the sense of, unless those are specific things you'd like for the students to have capacity and demonstration for, which is fine. And then it's going to align potentially with your math curriculum as well, because there'll be some similarities across them. Okay, so let's look at 1.1 for explaining phenomena scientifically. So the first one here is construct explanations of events or phenomena based on evidence from investigations. Justify the explanation by comparing it with other or reliable sources, and then make a logical decision to accept or revise the explanation. I like that it feels very much that it's an instructional method that's going to be required to do this quite clearly. So the next side of this coin a little bit is, here's what our competencies are. Now here's the instructional examples for how you would have individuals engage with something like that, because that would take, so if you think about individuals in grade 1 to 3 for this, it's going to take a fair bit of time to go through an exercise like that, from collecting the data and trying to explain what this is from a whole bunch of sources. Fine, it's good. I'm okay with that situation. Did I see anything else inside here? No, I didn't see as much. I had some more questions the first one. Make predictions by observing familiar events or phenomena based on scientific knowledge. Yeah, this nature of science inside here. Identified the familiar events, because it's the same question we had before, where it was familiar phenomena. And then 3.2, next phase, make predictions by observing social and environment related events. I kind of had a question about that one. So you've gone kind of from familiar events to social and environmental related events for that one. How come the progression is, like, I think you're trying to be I think you're trying to extend across multiple domains and be a little bit interdisciplinary. I see. I wonder if the social. I'm just trying to move the transition from 2.2 as being familiar events to 3.2 as being social environmental related events. And how come that transition? Could you not do social environmental related events or phenomena based on in grades 4 to 6? They'd be a little simpler, but might be okay. Like maybe that's what your competency is. It's predictions observing, but it's going to be narrow into the social environmental related. That's all. Wasn't bad. I do have a question for you though. So if we go to, in 4.2, the use of the word thoroughly, I see you've added it on the side. So make predictions by observing social environmental related events or phenomena thoroughly. And it's not inside the 3.2. And I wonder about what your thinking was for the thoroughness and how you would judge that, or what your criteria would be upon if something's thorough or not thorough. Like it feel like you could do 3.2 to 4.2. As long as they're developmentally appropriate inside, they still kind of make their predictions by observing. It's just the construct or the actual event or phenomena would just be a more complex one, or you'd expect the individuals to, maybe that's what you're getting at. So the thoroughly is the tie into scientific knowledge, models, conclusions, evidence from scientific investigation. Maybe that's what you mean by thoroughly. So it's got to be more closely tied, or it's got to be better aligned, or you're referring to this kind of background knowledge more so than you would expect the individuals at grade 7 to 9. Possibly. That's just me thinking out loud. And then my question for the last one is really, how come, so a fair bit of stuff is missing. So stage 1, identify claims, evidence, reasoning inside of argument related to a given scientific issue. So the first one's to identify claims, evidence, and then 3.1. So 2.1's identify, 3.1's construct, and 4.1's construct. I see it being socio-scientific, it's fine. Justify the arguments using concepts or principles that connect claim to the evidence. Construct scientific arguments about, provide support, claim the arguments, connect claim the evidence, considering relevant. Okay, so you've extended it out to say, here's what this is. So extend the process out. I guess you've just written 3.1 and just, it's identify claims and then it's construct arguments. Are you trying to get to number 3 where it's, could stage 2 be identify claims, and then could stage 3 be, I'm trying to, it doesn't feel exactly like they're aligned in a progression, because if one's identifying, one's constructing an argument, but it's really, I need to think about this one a little bit more, but it doesn't flow as well for me inside what this is. Or maybe you just change the language around to say the first phase of stage 3 and stage 4 is still identifying the claims and arguments, and then based upon what these are, you construct arguments about these, providing some degree of evidence. I had a hard time getting my head around how those kind of progressed a little bit. That's all. I liked your, and I know this is a little bit PISA, but your content knowledge, your procedural knowledge, and your epistemic knowledge. So the epistemic situation really does come from nature of science, I'd suggest. And then I don't know about, no, not a whole bunch of comments inside there. It's just that first one, I think you should maybe revisit and see if you can play around with the wording so that it feels a bit like feels a bit more like it's a progression. I don't quite, it's hard because you've changed the format around so that it's a little bit difficult. And if it's difficult for me, it might be difficult for a teacher, and trying to think about how this how this moves out and how it progresses. So, oops, I minimized my Zoom. Okay, so let's stop for a second. We can check in with individuals. You folks have been listening to me for like an hour and a half talk. I don't know if it's been useful for you. So that was kind of the stuff that I thought about, and I wasn't sure how that preparation went, but that's the kind of the notes in my reading inside what this document is. I'm happy to send you anything that I have set up inside here. I'll just I'll take my notes and I'll scan them in, or I'll get someone here to help me to type some of the stuff out, and I'll clean it up for you a little bit. But I'd be happy to share any of those situations, or happy to manage questions now or questions later on. But ultimately, I serve at your pleasure a little bit.
Okay, let's start for the question. Anyone has question, or you can raise your hands. Feel free to raise your hand, or use the like an online chat to ask some question.
I hope you take from this discussion that I'm pretty impressed with the work that you have done. I know you have a lot more work to do, but you should be really proud of the work that you've actually accomplished. Where's this? Can I ask you a question before we start? Where's the motivation for this coming from? Is it coming from so you work in a democracy like ours is, so the Thai government will change. Is it coming from the Thai government? Is it coming from some? Yeah, I'm interested.
Me? Again, please.
Why we do this, right?
Yeah, where's the motivation coming from this? Because it's a multi-year exercise, and it's a whole bunch of resources and a whole bunch of time. Like I wish we had this in Canada. We don't. Like we don't have a national curriculum. We don't have, our competencies are based by provinces, and I would like to be doing this in Canada, where we kind of go through this exercise and build this up nationally.
Right.
I'm impressed.
Right. Because our organization, IPST, we are autonomous organization under Ministry of Education. One of our responsibility is to work with Ministry of Education to create or develop the national curriculum, especially in science, mathematics, and technology. So based on the current situation, like from PISA assessment and other, like the OECD said, what in the Compass 2030, right? What we should prepare students for the future career, and something like that. So we think maybe before the Ministry of Education announced that we are going to have a new curriculum, we should prepare something for that. So we start the project to research on what competencies in science, mathematics, and technology that the current student should be prepared for their future. So this is the start of the project. And
I can sorry.
And this document can be used when the new national curriculum is announced, or maybe we can do something when when it's revised and everything is all set, it's done. So maybe we don't have to wait for the new curriculum, the new national curriculum. We can do something that maybe train the teacher or develop the new learning materials that help students to practice some skill, abilities, or competency. Because not only the other roles of my institute is to develop learning materials like textbook. We train teacher, we develop assessment tools. So we do like a holistic thing about teaching and learning science, math, and technology in class.
What does Thailand ask of so scientific, so assessment of numeracy skills in Thailand. I know there is some national assessment, I think, of numeracy. Is there a national assessment of science?
Yes, we have national assessment. We call ONET. We assess 5 core subjects: math, science, social study, Thai language, and English language, I think. Yeah, we have.
When do students do the assessments?
Grade 6, 9, and 12. When they,
And does the grade 12 one have a fair bit of weight into university for where they go?
They have other exam for entry to the university. They have to take mobile team high school, maybe help me. They have to take
Sorry, I know it's not your area of expertise.
Right. They have to take GET-PAT exam, and they have to correct portfolio during grade 10 to 12. They have to do many things to collect into their portfolio to entry to the university.
And it's a big job to assess portfolio too. But I'm using your time, so you should ask me questions. And thanks for asking, because I'm interested. Because where you are right now is 2014. The new curriculum may be 2024. Is the new curriculum 2026? Maybe 2027.
You mean the new curriculum?
Yeah.
Hopefully, we not sure yet, because right now there are some different ideas that some groups believe that the current curriculum is okay. We just train teacher how to teach, or how to prepare, how to incorporate competency into the teaching. But the other groups that mentioned that we need a competency-based curriculum. We need a new curriculum. It's still in not argument, but we still think about that, and
of course,
for ministry.
I can give you a piece of, maybe not advice, insider, but I don't know if you've looked at the curriculum in British Columbia, where I'm coming from, but what we've discovered here is it's very inquiry driven. So there's competencies inside, but it was written by teachers who are very experienced, so it's easy for them. It's very difficult if you're a new teacher to come in and try to do some of these things, because it's inquiry doesn't work unless you scaffold it and build up the competencies inside the program. I can see where your competencies have come from for the relationship with PISA, relationship with NGSS a little bit. I'm sure you've used them. I think you should be proud of the work that you have done so far.
Yeah, I think my teams reviewed curriculums from many countries. I believe that they review the curriculum from Canada as well. We review OECD, we review PISA. They review a lot of things. And then they work for a whole year to do and have this document.
Yeah, no, it's impressive. And I can, maybe people have questions. I don't know. Maybe I talked too fast. I get excited sometimes. But I can send you what I have, and then you could always come back and ask me questions. People can ask me questions. It's okay. I like this stuff. It's interesting. Oh, there's a question. Good. Yay.
Okay. So, Dr. Molford, I would like to ask questions about some competency that in Thai curriculum we may not seem like we don't mention much, but you mentioned a bit in BC curriculum, and you mentioned a bit about modeling, evaluating, and applying. So can you explain a bit or like give like how should we focus on those competency, especially for like I can see from Canada BC curriculum, side competency that you showed before. Evaluating and applying is a standalone competency, things like that. So like should we like in terms of Thai context or like should we concern or should we like focus on this a bit, things like that?
Yeah, so when I think about when you think about the way maybe like there's some evaluating inside you have evaluating of arguments inside that situation. You have in your competencies, you have evaluation of what arguments are. What BC has done is evaluating for so that the idea kind of let's see how to answer this kind of process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like,
well, it'd be, I think you could put in, for example, the evaluation aspect would be, okay, with your scientific investigation first process inside, you could ask in the sense of how so the first situation is about asking questions or making predictions or planning simple investigations. The evaluation inside that component could be an aspect of, is this an appropriate investigation for what you're trying to do? Is this an appropriate question? Like I alluded to the idea that there's certain questions that are only appropriate for scientific investigation from empiricism. So if you wanted to go down this process of you want to ask questions that stem from observing familiar phenomena based upon individual experiences, these questions are possible to investigation. It could be the evaluation component, like you could have an evaluation component inside that competency that asked, is this an appropriate question? Is this, are these predictions consistent with, or are these predictions based on the information that you have, or are you linking it to some scientific background understanding? Or when you plan simple investigations process, you could have the students to evaluate themselves on some levels or evaluate their peers on how appropriate those investigations are. I think it's inside here. So when I look at what your science competencies are, it's probably there in the sense of you wouldn't ask question. Yeah, I think it's there, but you want to make it more explicit, because if you don't make it explicit, that it means it might not become part of the instruction, then might not become a part of the student's experience. That's what I think about. So you just add you could add a little bit of an evaluation component inside it. I think the evaluation is pretty important, but also if you want these individuals to learn and become better and self-reflective upon this, it has to be kind of built into the exercise. That's where I think about it. And I could like an example that I always use would be the concept of a fair test, where we have students are pretty, like little kids can understand what's fair or not fair inside these kind of exercises. And when you have individuals design an exploration and investigation, especially if it's dealing with like a independent variable, can you have a discussion about how you go about this exercise with replication and fairness? That's kind of the example I think about. I don't know if that helps a little bit. But,
yeah. So like on the developing process of this science competency, our team talked a lot, discussed a lot if we should like focus more on evaluating or modeling, things like that. But like we have like many concern about that. So like so we place it somewhere like in science competency, as you can see, like but we haven't put it explicitly, like you said. So like so in your perspective, but I can see it was placed, it is placed in BC and some like many curriculum as well.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah. So
Is it?
I
I think
yeah, why is it
it's important,
important
right?
in your perspective? Like,
Why is it important? Because from the evaluation exercise inside is that going back to your kind of question about these questions. So here's my example for you. The first one inside 1.1, you've said these questions are possible to investigate. I would argue with you that every question is possible to investigate. But there's only certain questions that are possible to investigate via the scientific method or the nature of science and how those situations work out. And if you put in a component to suggest that these questions are, if you put in these questions are possible to investigate empirically or scientifically, embedded inside that is an actual evaluation component. You're actually, because you can't say, you can't ask the individuals, you can't ask to demonstrate competency that they understand if this question can be evaluated empirically, unless there is a component of, okay, was this or was this not? So you go through this whole exercise, at the very end of it, you kind of say, okay, why was that an appropriate investigation within this kind of scientific process? So why do I think evaluation is important? Because we build ourselves upon a cyclical nature of how teaching works, how learning works, and how science works. And if you want to model and you want to have these individuals become somewhat literate inside how science helps us to understand the world, they need to be conscious of the fact that there's most of the things that we understand right now scientifically will be adjusted and evaluated to be not as accurate as the next understanding and ideas. And if people can get their heads around the idea that science isn't a series of content to be memorized, but more a way of looking and understanding the world, that's where I think the evaluation is really, really important, because it's a big component of what that exercise is. But I'm not trying to criticize your document, because I think that there's evaluation inside here. It's just not made explicit. That you don't necessarily have to do it, but when you think about your content or your resources or your maybe textbooks or your teacher support for it, I would suggest that should be kind of a component inside to see if this has been an appropriate science investigation. Because your competency says scientific investigation. Well, they have to be able to walk away. Teachers need to walk away. Students need to walk away and say, why was that a scientific investigation, and was that an appropriate one from an evaluative stance? That's where I think it's important.
Mm-hmm. How about
I like that idea.
Yeah, how about modeling?
This the modeling aspect was mostly how we use models to explain how we use. This is NGSS stuff. It's not necessarily mine. It's actually not in my curriculum a whole bunch. I just identified it as not existing inside what yours was. It's not even in PISA, but NGSS really uses models and builds upon what those are. So that content area of the curriculum where we think about the model of the atom and how that's kind of progressed inside these periods of time and what's the purpose for a model. So that is an outcome, and it's kind of a competency, but I think maybe it can be covered inside your content more than what a competency is, because that's what I saw as NGSS. And then if it's modeling, like the kind of verb, I think that's captured in your scientific investigations. It's captured in your evaluation of arguments using scientific data and decision making, I think. But I only said models because NGSS thinks it's important. I don't necessarily agree.
So in terms of international perspective, should we focus more on?
Well, I don't see it. I don't see it in. I don't see it in PISA. Mm-hmm. I'm not seeing it in international assessments a whole bunch. I would recommend. But the question was, the question was that I was presented with was compare Thailand to a whole bunch of other international ones. And America is think of the relationship I have inside Canada is that America is a huge influence upon one. We try our very best not to be influenced by them a whole bunch, but we're influenced by them a whole bunch all the time. And NGSS, you hear about it quite often, but the Americans don't always look outward very much. They only look inward. So I wouldn't be too stressed or concerned about the fact that it was there. I just identified it.
Okay, thank you.
I really like the alignment with PISA. I'm more comfortable inside PISA, and PISA's got some limitations. I get. I don't know how they could possibly translate and back translate the PISA assessment into Thai, but they do it in all kinds of nations, right? That's a good question for you folks. When you look at PISA assessments, is it well translated and pretty accurate inside Thai language? Because you do write PISA in Thai, right?
So sometimes, like for example, procedural knowledge or epistemic knowledge is not like familiar in Thai context from my opinion. So we have to explain it more.
I think by putting it inside your competencies, inside the evaluating arguments, and trying to think about content, procedural, and epistemic, you're going to move it. Yeah, you're going to move in that direction, but it's going to be brand new learning for a whole bunch of people.
Yeah. So we have like discussed about that a lot. If we should put that terms in our competency document, or should we how we introduce this like into Thai context? Yeah.
Into Thai context. It's the language we use to discuss situations, right? So like the content knowledge and procedural knowledge is probably a pretty familiar one. Epistemic is a bit of a stretch. It's a stretch for lots of places, though. But I'd suggest, epistemic can be tied back into a little bit of, well, it's nature of knowledge, right? Nature of understanding. So it goes back to nature of science. So if you spend time inside nature of science, which I think is embedded inside here, epistemic can come from that. I hope I haven't bored you folks for 2 hours. Sorry.
We have a question from the message chat.
Oh, cool. Oh, wait. What aspect should we consider and put in the science curriculum for supporting development of students? Aspect should we consider or put? What aspect? Oh, from your experience, if we develop science curriculum, what aspects should be considered? Science curriculum for science competency. See if I understand what the question is in the sense of like, so try to unpack that, because I feel like you have, well, recommendation inside it would be, I'd be interested in how you run a question back to you, but I'd be interested in how you run this, because you have the competencies inside your curriculum, and there's going to be kind of content as well, right? So there'll be content inside, and when do you begin to differentiate into disciplines in the curriculum in Thailand? Grade 10 or grade 11? You're like, do they do a general science? Let me go back to this. Our science curriculum here at kindergarten all the way to grade 10 is in four domains. So we do kind of a biological sciences, an earth and space science, a physical science, like a physics, and then a chemistry. And we do them in these, we used to do them in kind of groups. Now they're just all kind of mixed together a little bit, but there's a progression all the way from kindergarten to year 10. Once you get into year 11 and year 12, you do specific domains. So you do a class just on chemistry, or a class just on physics, or a class just on biology. How does it work in Thailand?
Yeah, same. From grade 1 to 9, we do like general science.
Right.
In science subject, they have like 4 areas: physics, chemistry, biology, and earth and space science. But after grade 10, I think start from
get specific.
Yeah, they
Okay.
get specific.
Right. So inside the situation right now, you would have a whole bunch of, if I looked at your curriculum, you'd have a whole bunch of content area. Is there some procedural knowledge as well inside the curriculum? How's it broken up? Because are you suggesting inside here there's going to be the competencies that exist inside here, and then every single one of these competencies will be applied to those different content areas just consistently?
Do you
So,
mean
for example,
the current one, right? The current that we use, that school use today,
Right.
it's not like clearly talk the indicator only talk about content knowledge.
Content knowledge, right?
Yeah,
Right.
procedural
So-
knowledge or epistemic, the other knowledge, is like implicit, not explicitly. It
Right.
will be
Yeah.
maybe in the lesson plan or teacher manual or train the teacher, but not specified like this document is the first time that we clearly state about procedural knowledge.
And we're all trying to move in what this direction is. But so the way I view this is then you're gonna have scientific investigation. So from a scientific investigation, it's gonna be, kindergarten, or for the first 3 years of grade, here's what we'd like individuals to do for scientific investigation across those 3 cells, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. And then you're gonna say, okay, what does scientific investigation look like in biological sciences? Or what does scientific investigation look in physical sciences? And you're gonna it's gonna be a different way for the individuals to look at it, and then they'll have to learn the content through those investigations and explorations, right? So the question is, what aspects should we consider to put in science curriculum for supporting development of competencies? I think ultimately you are doing that because you are putting these competencies in, and you're trying to use the competencies to increase students' content knowledge, but it's not just a base content knowledge. You need the content knowledge to be able to do the investigations on some levels, but it cycles through a little bit like that. Like it's an iterative process. So the only additional one I would have you think about is 3 legs of the stool inside. You've said it already: content, procedural, and epistemic. Do you have? Here's what the procedures are that we want individuals to put, and I suggest there's some degree of competencies. Here's the content area. Now with this epistemic, this nature of science, how the nature of science process works, and then being able to step back and say, here's what science is trying to do, and here's why it's helped us. Here's the procedures we follow to understand what the content is. But that's the thing, is it's a little bit missing inside here, the kind of epistemic nature of science. So that may be evaluation, or that kind of questioning point of view, or that kind of discussion about that. You can take a look at Lederman's kind of ideas around what nature of science looks like. But I think it'd be an important component inside here that it's not fully captured, I think. So the question is what aspects. I really think that what you've done is what you've really done here is identify really important competencies to move this forward. Just hard yards for you is going to be trying to get the teachers and get the resources into doing something different, because if it's just taught as a content memorization exercise right now, it's going to be it's a difficult exercise for it. In my curriculum, how do you upper secondary learn science subjects, such as science compulsory, and all subjects are selective? We try to move towards some degree of, we've had some difficulty with this from an inquiry point of view. So as individuals move up into higher grades in years 11 and years 12, first off, it's not compulsory. So people have to have, so grade 10 science is the last grade 10 science that everyone takes, and it's the 4 kind of domains inside. It's still a fair bit of content memorization with some degree of inquiry. As it moves up into grade 11 and grade 12, and kind of the physics and the chemistries and the biologies. Not everybody takes those classes. You need one class to graduate from grade 12 inside science, and you can take, some people take like earth and ocean science or earth science because it's a little bit less rigorous, but it's still taught very kind of traditionally, where there's a fair bit of domain specificity and a fair bit of memorization. For example, one of the biology classes is really just kind of taxonomy across all species inside this planet, which is not exactly the direction we were trying to move into. So it aligns a little bit more with what you're explaining to me inside Thailand, where it's very content driven and not a whole bunch of procedure. But we're trying to move away from that. And the new curriculum is trying to move away from it. But I don't know if you know this, but not all teachers exactly follow the curriculum as it's set out in writing. I don't know if you have that problem in Thailand, but we have that problem in Canada. Like, doesn't matter what the curriculum is, they'll teach the way they've been taught. Natia, is your hand up? Natida.
Yeah, I have a question. Actually, is in the very beginning of your speech. So you mentioned about the attitude towards science in competency. So I guess you may notice that it is missing from the document, right? And
a little bit, yeah, but it was mostly an observation. It wasn't a criticism, right? You understand?
Yeah. So my question is, actually, in about this point about the attitude towards science, we plan to do after this, in another step. So, in your opinion, should we integrate the attitude towards science into these competencies, or we can do it separately and suggest teacher how to integrate the science concept, science contents, and attitude?
I think the attitude towards science could be integrated inside this. You could build up another competency around how this process works. I don't think it should be necessarily standalone, because I don't know what it's in our country. We're finding individuals are finding science isn't very relevant for them. It's somewhat dry, and we have individuals falling off and having some level of interest for this. But the way to build up kind of attitude towards science, I think, is to give some degree of autonomy and some degree of choice, and to move this away from a memorization kind of content to a bit more of an inquiry-driven exercise. Not totally inquiry, but I like the idea of what attitudes are. But why not, the attitudes towards science is appropriate, but why not take about even step back and think about this as attitudes towards a whole bunch of aspects inside students' own learning. So what are their attitudes towards themselves as a learner inside the schools, and how do we encourage and support those kind of ideas? So science is obviously an important one, because I'm interested in it, but I think it's broader and larger. So you can even step back and say, this kind of attitude element, we should look across the whole education system a little bit, and just ask the students how they're approaching their learning, and which environments are best for them, and what are the things that they're gaining from and benefiting, and how they're what kind of things are they doing to help them to become better learners and preparing for themselves for the future. It's a good question, though. I like that stuff.
Okay, let's get one last question. Anyone have a question? I think it's
I can fly
time.
to Bangkok. If this is useful, I can fly to Bangkok and we could have a conversation.
Yes, you should come.
I know, it's because you folks are so nice. Yeah, I'm happy to. It's good.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I would like to have one more question
Please.
about when should we teach science to students, because after we review many curriculum in many countries, so some
Yes.
curriculum place science in the curriculum for students as low as kindergarten or first grade or second grade, and some curriculum start teaching science for students at grade third grade, things like that. How do you think about this? Do you have
Probably.
yeah.
Yeah. So one of the areas of research I'm working on is early childhood education inside STEM. I can give you that could be a whole other talk if you want to have this conversation about it, but there's inquiry and exploration for students in how they engage with the natural world and begin to understand how this process looks. Here, I'll see if I'm going to find this thing fast because you don't want to go anywhere, but let me just find something for you and I'll share it with you and see if this helps. I can send this to you, but here, let's go back. I'll go back inside and I'll share this for you. Here's one of my colleague and I work in this area. So this is funded by our federal government, but I'm using STEM in early childhood education. So individuals really, I've been working with pre-K students and parents to guide what this looks like for STEM behavior. So I give you an example of it where we go into this early childhood education system. These are students who are 2 and 3 years old, who are pre-kindergarten, and they're doing things like a little chef's program, which means like chef in the sense of cooking. So they're taking real ingredients and going through this whole kind of lens of there's huge science inside that, and there's huge engineering exercises, and there's huge mathematics, all kinds of opportunities to encourage and have discussions about them. It's not a rote memorization kind of lesson process, but to engage and work with students inside early childhood opportunities. That's the place that we should be starting this. We're starting individuals when they're earlier on from a kindergarten kind of process or pre-kindergarten, early childhood, as soon as you possibly can, really, because there's room for it. It's how you go about doing this appropriately. But if you're interested, send me an email and I can I'll find this for you fast. Here's my, sorry, I hope this is okay. Here's my Google Scholar page. So this pre-kindergarten STEM in the early classroom is really good. I work all over the place, but there's an early STEM childhood observation protocol we're working on. So what kind of STEM activities work in early childhood? No, that's PISA. I'm writing books upon this, but you can, if you want, ask me and I can send all this stuff for you. I'll put my, I'll throw it into the chat. So I'll throw the Google Scholar page for me. I'll throw it in the chat, and if there's things, by all means, read this stuff. But if you want to have a conversation about this, I'm happy to as well, because I think that's where science and STEM actually should be happening. So math, engineering, technology, like technology for students. It's obviously not cell phones. It's more, how do ramps work, which is great. Like there's huge opportunities for students. Sorry, you got me excited for a second. I'll stop. I don't know if you agree, but that's kind of where it should kind of exist. So I could stay for a little bit longer. I just have, so it's 7 o'clock. I know it's 9 o'clock in the morning where you are, so it's time to have tea, I think, for you. You should take a break. It's 7 p.m. inside here, and I have to go get my my daughter from her field hockey practice, because all of us have lives outside of the academy a little bit. So
maybe we can set some a discussion for next time. Today is a long conversation, and we got a lot of information from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy to send you.
Okay.
I'm happy to send you my documents just to kind of a follow-up with it. But I'm really, I'm appreciative of the fact that we have these conversations, but I'm a huge amount of respect for the work that you're doing. And I hope he'll ask other people about this, but I hope this was a little bit helpful. I really enjoyed it. It's good conversations.
Thank you very much. On behalf of everyone here, I would like to thank you, Professor Dr Molford, for taking the time to share your experience with us. And I hope that we will have an opportunity to work with each other again next time. Or maybe you can come to Thailand to see us and talk to us in person next time in the future.
Yeah. I know there's a good science education conference out of Australia and New Zealand called ACERA, the Australasian Science Education. And yeah, ACERA is a good conference I go to once in a while because I used to live in Brisbane. So yeah, maybe, and it's, once you get over there, I can just stop on my way through. It's fine. It's good.
Okay, thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you.
for your presentation.
Have a wonderful day.
ขอบคุณครับ
ขอบคุณมากครับ Bye.
ขอบคุณค่ะ
Bye.
บ๊ายบาย